Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at the world of global finance.
Oh, yeah. Always an interesting topic.
You know it. Our listeners have sent in some thought-provoking material, particularly this interview with David Morgan, the Silver Guru.
Yes, David.
We're on Silver Bullion TV, and we're going to be really digging into his insights on what might happen if the dollar's dominance starts to fade. And you know what else we're thinking about?
What's that?
What could actually rise up in its place? So buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. Ever consider what a world without the dollar at the top might look like?
It's a question more people are asking, especially with the rumblings from those big economies out there.
Right. One thing that Morgan really honed in on in that interview, tariffs and global trade. He even mentioned one of the U.S. presidential candidates.
Oh, yeah. What about them?
The one pushing for a 100% tariff on goods from any country that doesn't use the dollar for trade. I mean, that just sounds like a recipe for an all-out trade war, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does make you think about the Smoot-Hawley Act back in the 1930s.
You're right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Didn't that actually end up making the Great Depression even worse?
It's often used as a warning, yeah. The idea back then was to protect American industries, sure. But then what happened? Other countries retaliated with their own tariffs.
Oh, yeah.
Global trade took a nosedive, and guess what? The economic crisis got even deeper. This time, though, we're talking about tariffs as a way to keep the dollar on top.
It's a whole different beast.
Adds a layer of complexity, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you've got the argument about protecting American jobs from what some people are calling like slave labor prices overseas.
Right.
But then you have this movement towards conscious capitalism and fair wages for everyone globally. So how do we find that balance?
Yeah, tough question. How do we balance those competing priorities in a global economy? It's a real dilemma ethically. Can we fight for fair labor practices abroad, but at the same time use tariffs to protect domestic industries?
It's a tough one for sure. It almost feels like these policies, though, are feeding into something else.
Like what?
A growing feeling globally that the U.S. is kind of unreliable, maybe even volatile on the world stage, like Morgan mentioned.
You know, there's no denying the U.S. has had its fair share of challenges.
Definitely.
Politically divided, economic uncertainties, and, a history of getting involved in other countries' affairs.
All contributing to that perception, for sure.
It's not just the military presence, which is definitely a factor,
Right.
but also the economic policies and diplomatic approaches, which a lot of countries see as unpredictable or even aggressive.
You know, I never thought of it that way. But if other countries had bases all over the U.S., I don't think we'd love that.
Perspective, right. Morgan even uses the term Anglo-American Empire. Might sound a bit provocative.
It does.
But it does point to a system built on power and debt, especially U.S. debt.
Which brings us to the Federal Reserve and their never-ending game of interest rate tweaks. Now they're talking about cutting rates again, and that usually weakens the dollar. Is that really a long-term solution?
It's tough to say. Rate cuts can be a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, they encourage borrowing and spending,
Right.
which can give the economy a little boost in the short term. But on the other hand, they devalue the currency, and that can fuel inflation, which nobody wants.
It's almost like the very meaning of money is getting blurry.
Right.
Morgan used the phrase inflate or die, which paints a pretty grim picture.
It does. He's worried that the U.S. might be stuck, needing to constantly pump more money into the system just to keep things from falling apart. And then you have the specter of hyperinflation looming overhead.
Oh, no.
Prices spiraling out of control, purchasing power evaporating, destabilizing the whole economy.
Not good.
Some even think the Fed could end up as the buyer of last resort for all that U.S. debt, printing money to cover the government's bills.
Wow, that's a scary thought. And it's not like this is happening in isolation. We're seeing some major players pushing back against the dollar. The BRICS nations.
Okay.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They're making moves to create their own systems, deals in their own currencies. Is this the beginning of the end for the dollar as the king of the castle?
The rise of the BRICS is a big deal, no doubt. They represent a massive chunk of the global population and economic activity.
They do.
And they're actively looking for ways to move away from a U.S.-centric financial system. Whether this is the start of the dollar's downfall, too early to say for sure,
Right.
but it's a definite signal the balance of power is shifting.
And Morgan seems pretty convinced that a big shakeup is coming. He doesn't see the dollar holding on to that top spot forever.
A lot of analysts are starting to feel that way. There's a growing sense that the current system just isn't sustainable in the long run. The question is what comes next. Could cryptocurrencies step in and play a bigger role?
That's a good question.
Will new trading platforms pop up that bypass the dollar altogether? These are all possibilities on the table.
You know, the possibility of the BRICS nations backing their new currency with gold, that's a fascinating one. Wouldn't that be a direct shot at the dollar?
It would send shockwaves through the system. A huge vote of no confidence in the dollar could trigger a mad dash for gold as investors look for safer ground.
Speaking of gold, I was struck by something Morgan said about Russia buying up all that gold. What's the takeaway for the average person? Is this a sign we should all be looking at ways to protect our own wealth?
Central banks and whole countries hoard gold for a reason. It's been a reliable store of value for centuries, especially in times of economic turmoil. What Russia's doing could be a sign. They see trouble on the horizon, and they're taking steps to protect themselves.
Interesting. It's funny because Morgan argues that gold is actually undervalued, even though prices have been going up.
Right.
He talks about nominal new highs, which are just record prices in dollars, versus the actual buying power of gold.
It's a good distinction to make. The fact that gold is climbing even when the stock market is relatively strong, it suggests something. Some investors are getting nervous, they see the risks in the current system, and they're looking for safer havens.
So with all these potential changes on the horizon, what are some things people can do to navigate this new financial landscape, to mitigate the risks?
Well, hold on there. Before we jump into strategies, let's take a breath. We've covered a lot of ground. It's important to process all this and think clearly. We'll dive into potential actions and the broader implications after a quick break.
Okay, we're back. And I'm sure your heads are spinning a little bit with all that information. I know mine is.
It is a lot to take in, but don't worry. We're going to break it down and figure out what it all means for you.
That's the key, right? What can we as individuals do to prepare for these potential changes? I mean, we've established that the financial landscape is shifting, the dollar's future at the top is uncertain, alternatives are emerging, and gold seems to be waving a big red flag.
It's like the ground is shifting beneath our feet. And the first step is recognizing that the old rules of the game might not apply anymore.
So the traditional advice of, diversifying with stocks and bonds might not be enough to weather this coming storm.
You got it. We need to think outside the box and look at assets that have historically held their value during tough times.
Like gold and silver.
Exactly. Precious metals have been a safe haven for centuries, and they tend to do well when people lose faith in those fiat currencies.
Morgan even suggested that gold is still undervalued, even with the recent price hikes.
It's something to consider, that's for sure. If we see a major currency crisis, the price of gold could go through the roof.
Should we all be stocking up on gold bars right now?
Whoa, hold on there. It's important to do your research and understand your risk tolerance, and maybe even talk to a financial advisor before making any big moves.
Okay, good point. Gold is one way to hedge against instability, but what about cryptocurrencies? I mean, they're gaining a lot of traction as an alternative to traditional currencies.
Crypto is a whole other world. A decentralized form of money, operating independently of those central banks and governments.
But let's be real, they're also pretty volatile. Their future is still a big question mark.
True, the crypto market is still in its early days. A bit unpredictable, you might say. But it does have the potential to really disrupt the financial system.
It feels like we're on the cusp of a financial revolution. But it's tough to say which cryptocurrencies, if any, will come out on top.
It's like the Wild West out there.
A lot of potential, but a lot of risks, too.
Exactly.
So how do we even wrap our heads around all this?
I think the key is curiosity and a willingness to learn. Don't panic, but don't get complacent either.
Stay informed, do your research, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, challenge those assumptions along the way. The more we question the way things are, the better prepared we'll be for whatever comes next.
Now, Morgan also talked about diversifying beyond just financial assets. What did he mean by that?
He was talking about diversifying your skills, your knowledge, your network. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
So not just financially, but also developing a diverse set of skills that can help you thrive in a world that's constantly changing.
Precisely. Learn new things, explore different fields, build relationships with people who share your values and goals.
It's about becoming more adaptable, more resilient, both financially and personally.
Absolutely. True wealth isn't just about money. It's about purpose, strong relationships, and the ability to roll with the punches.
Those are the things that really matter in the end, no matter what happens in those financial markets.
Exactly.
So in a way, preparing for a potential financial storm is also about inner strength and resilience.
Absolutely. When you have a strong foundation, you can weather any storm.
Now, let's be realistic here. Not everyone has the time or the means to become a global finance whiz.
That's true. But even taking small steps can make a difference. Start by understanding some basic financial concepts.
Like how money works, the difference between assets and liabilities, the importance of saving and investing.
You got it. The more you know, the better decisions you can make about your financial future.
There are a ton of resources available online too. Websites, blogs, podcasts.
You just have to be careful. Find those reliable sources and filter out all the noise.
Because, let's be honest, there's a lot of misinformation and fear-mongering out there, especially in the financial world.
You have to be a savvy consumer of information.
Morgan also talked about the importance of community, connecting with people who are on a similar path.
Surrounding yourself with like-minded people, those who share your values, those who are also looking to build a more resilient future. It can be incredibly empowering.
It's about building a support system, having people you can rely on when things get tough.
And learning from each other's experiences.
So it's not just about individual preparedness, but collective resilience.
Exactly. We're in this together, and we can accomplish so much more when we work together.
Now, I don't want to downplay the potential challenges ahead. These are some complex issues. But I also believe we have the power to create our own future.
By staying informed, thinking critically, and taking action, we can navigate these uncertain times and come out stronger on the other side.
And who knows, maybe we can even use this as a chance to create a more just and sustainable financial system.
One that prioritizes people and the planet.
That's something worth striving for. So what does all this mean for the average person trying to make sense of this ever-changing financial landscape?
It means we need to be adaptable, resourceful, and open to change.
It means challenging the status quo and seeking out those alternatives to a system that may no longer be serving our best interests.
It means taking control of our own financial well-being and not just relying on those institutions or governments to take care of us.
It's about continuous learning and growth.
And remembering that true wealth is more than just material possessions.
It's about inner strength, resilience, and that sense of community.
It's about creating a future where we can all thrive, not just survive.
And that, my friend, is a future worth fighting for. But before we get too carried away, let's shift gears and move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some of the bigger questions about what a transition away from the dollar might really look like. Welcome back, everyone, for the final part of our deep dive. We've been talking about the dollar's potential decline, the rise of alternatives, and how to prepare for these shifts. But now let's get philosophical. What does this all mean for us on a deeper level? What does it say about our values as a society?
That's where it gets really interesting. What if this isn't just about economics and power plays? What if it's about a shift in how we see the world?
Like a changing consciousness.
Exactly. People are questioning the old ways of doing things. They're looking for systems that actually reflect what they believe in.
So it's not just about the money, it's about our values, what we prioritize as a society.
Right. Remember those themes we've been talking about? Resilience, community, sustainability, those are resonating with people. There's this feeling that our current systems, not just financial, are out of whack.
You know, Morgan used that analogy about the global financial system being like a battle between crime families.
Yeah, a bit dramatic, but it does make you think about who's really in control. And when those in power only care about profits, not people or the planet, it creates a system that feels rigged.
It makes sense that people are looking for something else. So what could those alternatives actually look like? We talk about gold, crypto, even bartering.
Yeah.
But is there a bigger picture here?
Imagine a world where value isn't just measured in dollars. What if it included things like social impact, taking care of the environment, and how strong our communities are?
That's a big shift, like redefining what wealth and success mean.
Totally. It's about moving away from scarcity and competition, and embracing abundance and working together.
So instead of everyone trying to grab what they can, it's about sharing resources.
It's about realizing we're all connected, that our well-being depends on a healthy planet and taking care of each other.
That reminds me of something Morgan said about history, how financial systems have come and gone, each one reflecting the values of its time.
Yeah, history is full of examples of civilizations that crashed and burned because their systems got too rigid. They lost touch with what people needed and what the environment could handle.
So this shift we're seeing now, Maybe it's not so strange after all. Maybe it's just part of a natural evolution.
Could be. And it's up to us to decide what comes next. Are we going to repeat those old mistakes? Or will we create something totally new, something that works for everyone now and in the future?
That's a big question, but an exciting one.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in a time of massive change, a time when the old rules are being tossed out the window.
And it's our chance to be part of something new, to share our ideas and help shape the future.
So what can people do to get involved in this shift? We've talked about practical steps like diversifying your money, becoming more resilient, and staying informed. But how about engaging with these bigger ideas?
It starts with looking inward. Ask yourself, what's really important to me? What kind of world do I want to live in? What values do I want to see in our systems?
It's about walking the walk, right? Supporting ethical businesses, investing in things that are good for the planet, talking about these things with friends and family.
Even small actions can make a difference. We're not just along for the ride, we're part of creating this new future.
That's a great message to end on. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from the dollar's decline to new systems emerging, from practical steps you can take to prepare for a shift in values and a vision for the future.
It's been a great conversation. I hope everyone listening feels like they can be part of this change.
Thank you for joining us. Remember, knowledge is power, and together we can face whatever's coming and create a world where everyone can thrive. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and stay engaged. See you next time.